Metalheads, and welcome to episode 21 of the Harsh Vocals Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Corbett, and I'm joined by my good friend, Christian Renner. How are you doing today, man?
Pretty good. How's everybody doing out there?
Well, as always, 2024 has continued to deliver some amazing music. I do feel like the past 2 weeks are maybe a little bit less jam-packed as the previous 2 weeks were, but still tons of good stuff.
Yeah.
So for this week's episode, our theme is actually going to be influential albums. And so Christian and I were talking about this, and we wanted to kind of highlight albums that were critical in the development of metal as it's grown through the ages. So this is going to be part one. We're going to talk about this at the end of the show, but it's going to be about all of the influential albums that came out up until 1995. And then we'll do a part two later where we discuss everything from 1995 to current. So just wanted to put that out there so you guys know what the theme is going to be before we get into talking about the music.
I am absolutely ready.
All right, well, you're up first.
Yeah, we have a band here called Scattered Guts. The album is called Human Entropy. We got thrash metal from Tempe, Arizona. The track that I picked was The Impact Zone, and mainly because it's just got this killer riff. It's very, very good. Is it the best? Nah. But I love thrash, and this just kind of fit.
You haven't had a thrash album.
Kind of an off year.
You haven't had a really good thrash album in a couple of episodes. So, I
had to jump on
this. Yeah, this is going to be a Christian pick. I was sure of it.
Oh, yeah. This band has 3 full lengths and 2 EPs since 2008, which is quite a bit for being unsigned, which is another unsigned band. And, putting out 3 full lengths completely on your own, to me, that shows a level of stick-to-itiveness, I guess you'd call it. They're not giving up on this, and hey, they really should be signed. I've heard way worse bands, and they are signed. So it is what it is, I guess. This has that old-school thrash feel that I absolutely positively love. There are probably other albums that are just slightly better overall, like I said, but, this is one of those albums that just feels like an easy reach, when you don't really know what to listen to and you just grab something and you just throw it on. This is one of those kind of albums. This isn't doing anything special or new or anything like that, but if you're, an old school thrash metal fan like me, this just feels good. It just, just makes you smile. And, when those awesome riffs kick in and, it's like, oh, this here would be the pit section right here live, So
is it like what you would consider? It just feels good. Is it what you would consider like a comfort album?
Yes. This is comfort food for heavy metal fans. This is exactly what that is. This is like, banana pudding or something. I don't know, but
Scattered Guts, the banana pudding of thrash metal.
Of metal. There you go. That is awesome. Maybe they should put that. Maybe they'd get signed then.
Yeah. Maybe so.
We just gave you some free PR right there. Hook it up, bros.
No,
but yeah, this is just a fantastic album. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I love this album.
I like this one a lot too. Thrash is not my preferred subgenre usually, but I do like it from time to time, and it just sort of depends. And this one was a lot of fun. It's high energy. It's in your face, but it's never like overly aggressive to the point where it becomes samey or boring. It's just fun. So I think it's a solid pick. Like I said, the first time I heard it, I knew Christian was going to pick this. So I'm not shocked at all.
This was actually the very first album that I heard that I was like, yep, that's a pick. Just knew it right away. I was like, yeah, I'm picking this. There's just no way around it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and play the track. Again, this is The Impact Zone off of the album Human Entropy from the band Scattered Guts. Killer track, man. I love it.
Yep. If that doesn't make you feel like you want to jump into a pit, even at my age, yeah, I don't know what to tell you.
All right. Well, let's move on. The second album we're going to talk about is one of my picks, and this is the band Abramelin, or Abramelin, Abramelin. The album is called Sins of the Father. This is death metal with a little bit of blackened influence from Australia. It's their fourth full-length album since 1988. They used to be called Archeron, but because of some naming competition issues with another band in the US, they were forced to change it. So they changed it to Abramelin. This is a band that has some pedigreed members in it. The drummer and the rhythm guitarist are from the band Psychroptic, who I'm sure everybody's familiar with. The lead guitarist is the same guitarist from the band Werewolves, who put out a really brutal album earlier this year. So, I mean, it's got some great members in it. The album is fast-paced, aggressive, exactly what you want from a death metal album, but it also has a lot of like kind of subtle melodies, and the blackened parts are some of my favorites. I really love the black metal singing they do on here, even if it is kind of like spaced out compared to the death metal parts. I do feel like there's the tiniest little bit of bloat on the album. Some of the songs kind of meander just a little bit. Like they're 4.5 minutes. They could have easily been like 3-minute, 45-second songs, but that's just me being really nitpicky. The album overall is great. It's a lot of fun to listen to. If you like death metal with a little bit of, fringe black stuff on it, you're going to love this.
I think the thing that really struck me about this album is the variety in the songwriting. There's a lot that they're doing within these songs, in the constraints of death metal. It actually has more variety than your, typical death metal.
Definitely.
And the guitar work on here is just fantastic. I mean, just amazing guitar work. And, any band that's 30 plus years in and still going at this, hey, that's impressive to me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and play a track. Again, this is Abramelin off of their album Sins of the Father. The track that I picked is called Shell of a Band. I picked this track because I feel like it's one of the best ones on the album, and it does really kind of highlight the variety that Christian's talking about. It starts off kind of slow and then gets really fast and kind of goes back and forth a couple of times throughout the song. There's a lot to appreciate here, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and play the track.
Absolute banger of an album right there. And trust me, the whole album is very, very similar to that. There's a lot going on here. It's one of those albums that you could probably listen to 10 times and still catch new stuff.
Mm-hmm. I did listen to it 10 times, and I'm still finding things to appreciate in it. It's a very, very good album.
Yeah.
All right. Well, moving on. This next pick is one of Christian's. It's Andy Gillian's solo project, and the album is called Exilium. So if you don't know who Andy Gillian is, he was the premier songwriter and guitarist for Mors Principium Est since, 2012 through 2020, I believe. Yeah. If you've never heard Mors Principium Est before, I don't know what you've been doing with your life, because they are one of the best melodic death metal bands that has ever existed. Andy Gillian is a fantastic songwriter, one of the absolute best in the entire business. And this is Christian's pick, so I'm not going to hijack it too much, but I just want to make sure people are aware of who he is before we start talking about it.
This here's, like Justin said, this is Andy Gillian, Exilium. We have progressive mellow death. He hails from Bristol, England. The track that I picked is the opening track, Prophecy. And like you were saying, most listeners will already know about Mr. Gillian from his time in Mors Principium Est. And I will admit, I took notice of Mors Principium Est because of Andy's guitar work in that band and his songwriting. And not sure what happened with all of that. I don't want to speculate because I don't know. And, everybody's moved on. Andy's moved on. Mors has moved on. So I guess everything has worked out one way or another. This album is an absolute fucking banger. So, this album shows Andy will be fine completely on his own. So this album, this is mellow death, but with tons of variety. There is definitely parts on here that are very reminiscent of Mors, but, there should be, with Andy being the main driving force, in the songwriting for that band. It would, however, be a bit of a disservice to say that this is all this is. There are moments that lean into straight progressive metal, and even moments that would be completely at home on a power metal album. I mean, overall, this is one of those albums you will have no problem liking right away, but also one that you will notice more and more things to like about it the more you listen to it. If you're a fan of melodeath in general, Andy's work with Mors, or even just his solo work, there's something here to like for everybody. And there's certain parts like the second track that it took me a little while to get into, but once it clicked, it kind of really clicked. And I'm just a fan of his work in general. Mm-hmm. And his guitar tone. I love his guitar tone. Yeah, I love his phrasing in his solos.
Honestly, the only part that sounds good like Mors is the guitar tone, because he still uses that same tone that he used in Mors, and it's very clear throughout a lot of the tracks. But at the same time, he has a long history of writing soundtracks and like score type stuff. So the album almost feels cinematic in some ways, kind of like the Isan album from earlier this year did. Very, very cinematic kind of storytelling. The one thing that I didn't love about the album was track 2. Since you're going to bring it up, I'll go ahead and talk about it. Because he has a guest vocalist, Brittany Slays, I think her name is, from Unleash the Archers. You know, I'm not the biggest fan of clean vocals, as we've talked about in general. She does a little bit of harsh vocal singing on that track too, and that part was fine. It's just I can't get into her clean vocals personally. I think the album would have been better without it, in my opinion. But every other track on the album I loved. So I'm excited to see what he does next. You know, I mean, Moors was such an important band for me for such a long time. And now seeing Andy Gillian doing his own thing, it's very clear how much of a driving force he was behind that other band.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that, like I said, the guitar work is just absolutely phenomenal on this record. And, you know, the more you listen to it, the more you like it. I don't know. I'm just a huge Andy Gillian fan, I guess. So we'll just go with that.
Sounds good.
It's just a fantastic album. Yeah.
Well, let's let our listeners hear it for themselves. Again, this is Andy Gillian off of his album Exilium, and the track that we picked is Prophecy. So enjoy it.
Stay
That's what you call some shredding.
I wonder if our listeners have caught on to the prophecy thing yet, Christian.
I wonder.
Yeah, if
how many prophecy songs are we going to have?
Anytime any musician has a song called Prophecy or contains the word prophecies, that is the song we pick. I don't think
It seems like it.
Nobody's mentioned it yet, but 20 something episodes and we're still doing it. So.
Yeah. And why is it that it, and I mean, I'm not doing it on purpose. That is, the song. It's like, wow, this really represents what this album is all about. And it just happens to be the prophecy song.
I'm kind of doing it on purpose at this point. I think it's a trend. We're just going to keep going.
Yeah. Episode 300, we're going to only have people on that have songs with prophecy in the title.
Sounds like a plan. All right. Well, again, that was Andy Gillian. Fantastic album. I love it. If you never heard Mors Principium Est, I highly encourage going back and listening to all of their albums because every single one is killer. Let's go ahead and move on. Speaking of killer albums, my next pick is the band Undeath. They put out an album called More Insane. This is death metal from New York. It's their third full length since 2018. These guys basically sing songs about horror movies and zombies and the dead rising and all kinds of shit like that. It's very, very fun death metal. Very in your face, very aggressive, lots of catchy grooves and riffs all throughout the album. I had never heard these guys before this release, and I was immediately hooked on this album. It's probably the one I listened to the most in this cycle. What did you think about this one, Christian?
Yeah, I really like this one too. If it wasn't going to be a pick for you, I probably would have made it a pick. Like you said, it's just really fun. And, it kind of reminded me a little bit of that Tomb Mold album.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit of Tomb Mold with a little bit of 200 Stab Wounds in there.
That's what I would say too. You normally say that you're for fans of, and that's actually like a really interesting and true, byline where I see the mixture perfectly there. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just hits you right away. And like if I was a huge fan of death metal like I am thrash, this would be that comfortable. Yeah, this is what you want out of your death metal.
Definitely.
I'm just a huge fan of the fun, the more fun inspired death metal.
I am too, and this year's been full of it. There's been so many great albums that have come out that are, I honestly feel like it's been kind of a renaissance for it. We've talked about how strong black metal has been this year because black metal has absolutely dominated everything, and our end of year lists are going to be full of amazing black metal albums, but death metal is holding its own too. Not necessarily like mellow death or doom death or anything like that, but like straightforward death metal.
Yep.
There's been so many great albums that have come out that are just fun and catchy and, classic sounding. And I kind of feel like it's being underrepresented in how we talk about it because, we address each album individually, but truthfully, there's been probably 20 or 25 of these kind of albums that came out that are super fun. Mm. And this is one of them. This is one of the best ones, to be honest.
Yeah. And I mean, the reason that I brought up Tomb Mold and the 200 Stab Wounds albums, and because I still listen to those quite frequently, they're really good albums. And, we do have a lot of stuff that, we listen to during the week. So it's kind of hard to go back. But every now and then you just want a palate cleanser. You throw on an album that is going to be good. And, that's the way, Tomb Mold and 200 Stab Wounds has been for me when I'm looking to listen to some death metal. And now you just add Undeath to that. And you got a trifecta there.
Definitely. If you haven't heard Undeath before, I think you guys are in for a treat. The track I picked is the title track, More Insane. And this is a pretty freaking insane song. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and play the track. Driven by anger, I love that song, man. I love that whole album. It's comfort food for your ears.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're wanting some death metal, you can't really go wrong with, this or, Tomb Mold or Tuner Stab Wounds.
Or Maul. I mean, the cool thing is that there was a lot of albums that came out in this cycle that kind of fit into this category we're talking about of like fun death metal. Maul was another one. I have that as an honorable mention. And then again, Vomit Forth. Both of those are on my HM list. They both kind of fall in that same category of being really fun death metal that are doing a little bit of experimental things. Just a great cycle for that particular brand of death metal.
Yep. Completely agree.
All right, well, let's move on. The next pick is one of yours, and this is an album that you and I both loved and both would have loved to have on our pick list. Ignominous.
The band Ignominous with the album Dawn with No Light. We have black metal from Central Macedonia, Greece. The track that I picked is Cosmic Spawns of Death. They did not have a prophecy song on their album.
What a shame.
So what are you going to do? This here's a debut album from this band that formed in 2020. Saw that the drummer, Billy Vangar, is also in Yoth Area.
Which is one of your favorite bands.
Which is, I'm already in. After doing a little bit of research, I saw that, and I was like, holy shit. And Yoth Area has an album coming out November 8th. I've got that circled. I don't know what the deal is in Greece. For such a small country, how the fuck do they have such a strong metal scene?
Yeah, they really do.
How big is Greece? Like the size of Vermont or some shit?
It's not a big country. That's true.
It's so fucking small, And I'm just constantly shocked. Not just how good that metal scene is, but the bands that are coming out of there are also very, very fucking good. It's not like, oh, they're okay. No, they're insanely fucking good.
You got to wonder if all the more established Greek black metal bands are like mentoring the up and coming ones, and teaching them how to make better sound. I mean, it's got to be something like that. It's got to be like the drummers are being shared across the bands and they have such, insight into what makes an album good that they're just sharing that knowledge between them or something, because the output, you're absolutely right. It's like not the same as it is in other countries from Greece. Like,
yeah,
there's for such a small country, they are putting out just incredible black metal albums.
I never really thought about that until you just said it, but I'm a huge fan of Greek black metal in general. They have this sense of groove and atmosphere that not a lot of other black metal bands kind of do. Like Yoth Area is all about that groove and the atmosphere building something, building up to something. And you get some of that on here, not as much, but this is more straightforward black metal. But yeah, I'm just always, if it says black metal and it's from Greece, I'm definitely going to give it a really good listen, because you can't go wrong with black metal from Greece.
Yeah, you really can't. And this album, not only does it have all the standard hallmarks of a black metal album from Greece, it's also incredibly well produced for being a debut. Yep. The songwriting is miles above what you would expect from being a debut album. Tracks are full of groovy, infectious music, as well as the typical black metal fare that you kind of hear. And
plenty of aggression.
Lots of aggression. I couldn't get enough of this album, to be honest. I found it kind of late in the cycle because it came out in the second week, and I didn't discover it until it was at the very bottom of my list, basically. And I wish I had more time with it, but I did listen to it at least 10 times, and it's just excellent all the way around.
Yeah, I wish this would be out on vinyl.
Yeah, me too. We can keep our fingers crossed.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
All right. Well, moving on to our last album, another black metal album that I think Christian will agree with me was one of the strongest of the week, if not the strongest album. This is probably the second most listened to one that I had. The band Wolves Winter. And that's Wolves and then an apostrophe and then space and then winter. The name of the album is The Medium, and the U is a V because they got to be true cult.
Yep. That's important.
These guys are from Argentina, and Argentina does not have a thriving black metal scene the same way that Greece does, as far as I'm aware. But somehow they produced this album, which is just full of incredible atmosphere and frizzen. I think frizzen is a good applicable word here. Like, that feeling that's driving behind the music that we've talked about previously on other episodes. There's a lot of that here. The atmosphere makes the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and the aggression in here is some of the most aggressive that I've heard this year on a black metal album. I mean, it just sounds mean and horrible, and that's what you want from black metal sometimes.
Yeah.
What did you think of this one, Christian?
Oh, I was a big fan of this as well. Again, it has a little bit thin production, but I seem to be getting over that because it didn't really bother me that much on this one. I mean, I get a kind of strong Spectral Wound feel off of this.
The tone was very similar, and the aggression, like the more aggressive Spectral Wound songs feel like this. I'll give you that, but there's like more. There's more atmosphere and more like raw emotion in certain songs that Spectral Wound tends to have, but it's still, a similar level of like fun to listen to.
I mean, this seems like an album that would have fit 100% perfectly into that second wave of black metal, that late 90s kind of sound. Mm-hmm. And so, it kind of felt kind of old school while also sounding new.
Yeah.
And so I really dug this. I really did.
Yeah, me too.
I was a big fan.
It was one of the best of the cycle. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Let's go ahead and play a track. This is called Flame of Ghosts off the album The Medium from Wolves Winter.
Such a good record. Such a good record. And, Justin really could have picked any track.
Yeah.
Every single track on here is really good.
I did struggle with that, actually.
The reason it's not easy.
No, the reason I picked Flame of Ghosts is because it does have that melody at the beginning that kind of showcases a little bit more of the diversity on the album. Mm-hmm. Some of the tracks are very straightforward, aggressive black metal, and other ones have melody and atmosphere. And I kind of wanted to pick one that kind of showed the whole range. I felt like this was the best one on the album to do that. So hopefully that did come through when you guys heard it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. It is one of the ones that, if you were looking for one that had some melody in it, yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for our picks for the week. Let's go ahead and move on to our honorable mentions. I know, Christian, you've got a few. I've got 8 on my list. So we'll try to go through these quickly.
First time ever, you're going to have more than me.
Yeah. So we'll try to get through these quickly and then move on to our topic.
All righty. Let's start out with Lords of the Trident. The album is called VGEP. I'm going to guess that means very good EP. I don't know. It is just an EP, short album. This is heavy power metal from Wisconsin. If you like 3 Inches of Blood or Visigoth, you're going to like Lords of the Trident. Next, we have Triumpher. And I am not mispronouncing that. It is Triumpher. I just so you know, I'm not like having a stroke or something. The album is called Spirit Invictus. We have heavy power metal from Greece. Shocker. If you like Hellstar or Virgin Steel, you are going to like Triumpher. Just super catchy, traditional heavy and power metal, kind of a good mixture there. Then we had this album, Kami no Akari. That's 3 words. The album is called See You in Hell. We have symphonic mellow death with a tinge of deathcore in there. If you like Flesh God Apocalypse or Dimmu Borgir, you are probably going to like this album. Then we have Askisi. Now, this one here, I got to talk a little bit about.
We got to talk about this one.
Yeah. The album is called The Roots of a Sacred Tree, and this is atmospheric black metal. And this would have 100% been the best album to come out this week if they did not. I don't want to say they fucked it up with the instrumental tracks, but they kind of fucked it up with the instrumental tracks.
So the album the album is sandwiched between an intro and an outro that are both very long tracks that are mostly instrumental that are just not good. They sound completely different than the rest of the tracks on the album, and they don't really seem to serve any purpose. I did not like the intro or the outro whatsoever, which is like 20 minutes of the music on the album. But everything that's sandwiched in between those 2 tracks is absolutely fucking killer. This would 100% have been a pick if those intro and outro tracks didn't exist. Like, these guys are incredible musicians, but they need to really edit on their next album, not do intros. Yes. I mean, we listen to so much music, and we talk about intros being a problem a lot because it is. We listen to so much music, and if 8 out of 10 albums have a 4-minute intro track and it's just instrumental, it sucks. Like, nobody wants to hear that all the time, and it doesn't really add anything. If you're going to do an intro track, do like a minute and a half and have it be a part of what leads into the first track. Make track 2 track 1 and just add a minute and a half to the beginning of it if you have to, but don't make it 4 minutes or 8 minutes long, for God's sakes. It's just too much. And
and that was the problem here.
Yeah. When I first heard that intro, I got like 3 minutes into it and I was just like, Jesus, when is this going to end? And I almost turned it off. I almost just didn't continue listening to the album, but Christian was like, you got to hear the middle. So I kept going. I just skipped it from that point on. And he was right. The middle is phenomenal, but the beginning and end are just terrible. Like, I don't know how you make an album that's so at odds with itself like this. Again, mad props to these guys for their skills because they are very talented writers, but please don't do this again.
Yeah, please. I mean, if nothing else, just to make me happy, because God damn, this album was so fucking good. And it seriously hurts my heart to only make it an honorable mention. And I just couldn't make it a pick because of those fucking instrumentals, man.
In the year of 2024, when every single week there's like 10 amazing albums coming out, you can't do stuff like that and then expect people to like it or talk about it or whatever. It's just, it condemns your album to not being a pick and not being talked about and promoted because nobody likes it. I don't know. And maybe somebody does, or everybody. It's not us.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe. But I'm willing to bet anybody that's talking about this album is like, yeah, just go ahead and skip that intro track and just get into track 2 and you're good. You're golden.
Yeah.
You're good. And remember to cut it off early. So yeah, that absolutely would have been a pick. It's a fantastic album if you just take out those instrumentals. And hey, I'm not a musician. Well, not anymore, but I can't write stuff this good. I will freely admit that. So take that for what you will. Maybe there's people out there that, would say, you know what, you're an idiot. That intro is fucking amazing. I don't know. It didn't work for me. That's all I know. And it would have been a fantastic album for me without it.
There's something for everybody, but I think it's a pretty common consensus that people are getting tired of intro tracks, and especially like long-winded instrumental tracks. It's just bloat that
it doesn't need to be
from your album. Please stop doing it, guys. Please.
Yeah, please. All right, let's continue. A band that we featured earlier this year, Rise of Kronos. They already have a new album out. I don't know what sort of turnaround these guys are doing, but it was episode 16? That was only 2 months ago. Yeah, it was episode 16.
Wow, yeah.
I actually looked it up. I don't know. Maybe they just had both of them written, both of them recorded at the same time, and they just released them kind of like Amiensis did.
That's possible, yeah. But I mean, they're very prolific, putting out 2 albums in the same year, and it's got to be hard to write this much quality material in that short amount of time, because both albums are excellent.
Because this was really close to being a pick as well.
Yeah, for me too.
And I mean, honestly, I think the only reason that I really didn't was because we just featured them in episode 16. That wasn't that long ago. Mm-hmm. And I probably could have picked this over the Scattered Guts album maybe, but yeah, it is what it is.
It's a good album, though. Definitely listen to it.
Yeah, it's very good. Death Thrash from Germany, Rise of Kronos. The album is called Imperium. And finally, the new album from The Crown, Crown of Thorns. We got mellow death mixed with a little bit of thrash from Sweden. And most people already know who this band is. They've been around for a very long time. But if you like At the Gates or The Haunted, you mix those two together, you're going to get The Crown. I've been a huge fan of these guys forever and a day. This album just doesn't sound a whole lot different from their last album. And I mean, I like that one too, but it wasn't a like, wow, that's amazing. It's a very solid death thrash album. Maybe not pick worthy, but definitely honorable mention. And I'm absolutely positive there's going to be people out there that think this here is the best thing to come out these 2 weeks.
Yeah, probably so. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun album, and I'm not even as big a fan of them as you are. I thought it was good.
Yeah. I actually think Death Race King is one of the best death thrash albums ever made. So.
All right. Any more?
Nope, that's it for me.
All right. Well, moving on to mine then. The first one I have is Vomit Forth. They put out an album called Terrified of God. This is death metal from Connecticut in the U.S. It's their second full-length album since 2018. They mix in a little bit of technical death metal stuff. They mix in a little bit of hardcore, do it a little bit interesting. But like I mentioned before when we were talking about Undeath, this is a very fun, straightforward, old school death metal album that just has a little bit of flourishes from other kinds of genres. It's fun, and all the songs are pretty short. I think the whole album is like 29 or 30 minutes, so you can get through it pretty quick. And if you like fun, catchy death metal, you'll love this. Next is the band Aera, A-E-R-A. They put out an album called Fantast. This is atmospheric black metal from Germany, second full-length album since 2019. I really enjoyed this one. I like atmospheric black metal in this vein. They kind of sound like the other band that has a similar name, Ara, A-A-R-A. But I'm a fan of them too, so I can't really complain. I liked this enough that I actually bought it on vinyl. I know, Christian, you didn't quite love it as much as I did. Some of the songs do meander, and there is some of that bloat that we always talk about. But in atmospheric black metal, bloat is more forgivable than in other places, I think.
Yeah, it can be. It definitely can be.
Next is the album that everybody else is probably putting as their pick of the week, Blood Incantation's latest Absolute Elsewhere. It's progressive death metal from Denver, Colorado, their third full-length album since 2016. So this is kind of a divisive album. A lot of people are chiming album of the year. they're completely enamored with it. It's been featured on Decibel Magazine. Like all these pop stars are talking about it. It's crossing barriers and reaching the mainstream audience, which is something that is very hard for a death metal album to do. And I think it's because of the Pink Floyd inspired melodic portions of the album more so than the death metal portions of the album. If you're not familiar with what Blood Incantation's whole thing is, they do this like cosmic blend of like psychedelic Pink Floyd inspired melodies that break down into these like really intense, short, great death metal sections. It doesn't always work for me. Some of their previous albums were a little too slow. This one, the first time I listened to it, I was like, well, that's just okay. It's kind of a little bit more fun than their last one was, a little bit more like melodic and upbeat, but it didn't really grab me the way that it did a lot of other people. But I gave it 4 listens because obviously everybody's talking about it. And by the 4th listen, I think I had a better appreciation for it. I like the album a lot. I don't think it's album of the year or anywhere close to it, but I can see why other people are enjoying it a lot as well. Christian, how did you feel about Absolute Elsewhere?
I liked half of it. I like the death metal parts. Look, I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan, and Blood Incantation is not Pink Floyd. And you can try and put that in there, but to me, for me personally, this does not work. You Pink Floyd mixed with death metal really, that does not work for me.
See, I disagree on that point because Rivers of Nile is a band. And Rivers of Nile does Pink Floyd and death metal that absolutely works. I just don't think it works in the meandering, slow, atmospheric sort of building that these guys do quite as well. Like,
see, I think my problem with this is the way they use it. It almost feels like very distinct, separate sections.
Yeah.
And then they try and put it together. And to me, that doesn't work. Rivers of Nile incorporates it all.
Correct. Yeah.
And it works way better that way. This sounds like, hey, if you like Pink Floyd, listen to that half of the album. And if you like death metal, listen to this half of the album. But together, it doesn't work for me. And I mean, it could very well be just a me problem. And obviously it is, because there's a ton of people that love this album.
It's not just a you problem because like I said, it's a very divisive album. Some people absolutely love it. Other people feel like you feel. I've seen both sides of that coin. For me personally, I like it, but don't love it. So I think this is one of those albums that kind of runs the whole gamut, but for the people that it clicks with, you're going to see this on a lot of end of year lists. I guarantee it. A lot of people absolutely love this album.
But I will freely admit, everything that I've just said, this could very well work for somebody else. And I have to fully admit, I've never been a big Blood Incantation fan. So, I've never really cared too much for what they do. Mm-hmm. Never really liked it all that much. So this probably just isn't a band for me.
Yeah. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But I figured since it was, the biggest metal news cycle item, we had to at least address it. All right, well, moving on. Next, I have the band Krvl, KRVL. They put out an album called Donkere Payden. They're post-black metal from Belgium. It's their second full length since 2020. I can't find any information about this band, who they are, if it's a solo project, if it's a group. Somebody does run their Twitter account because I've interacted with that person. So if they're listening to the show, I just want to say, hey, I love your album. It's great. I was really, really enjoyable post-black. It's almost like exactly what I look for when I'm looking for post-black. It's very, very good. It's just, I don't have enough information to really talk about your band in more depth. So if you like post-black metal, check out Krvl. If you don't, it's probably not going to be for you. Next is the band Maul, which we also mentioned in the Undeath section. They put out an album called In the Jaws of Bereavement. This is death metal from North Dakota, mixed with a lot more hardcore kind of elements and even a little bit of thrash in there. Again, it's very much a straightforward, old school style death metal album, just with these, sprinklings of all this other stuff. I do think there's more hardcore elements in here than there were in the other two I mentioned, but it's a lot of fun. This is the year of fun death metal as much as it's the year of amazing progressive black metal. So if you like fun death metal, you'll love Maul. And then the last band I was going to talk about is Cemetery Skyline, which I know is another one that's kind of been divisive. It's an amazing group of musicians from across Amorphous and Sentenced and Dark Tranquillity that all came together to create this gothic sounding metal band that is basically Typo Negative meets Dark Tranquillity, but only the clean singing in Dark Tranquillity. Yep. It's an album that I've heard a lot of people really love. I like it a lot. I've listened to it several times. I bought it on vinyl. I don't know the staying power that it has yet because it's not one that I've gone back to a whole lot. And it might be a mood album. Christian and I were talking about it, and he feels like it's definitely a mood album. I think he might be right. I'm starting to come around on that perspective on it. But regardless, the songwriting in here is top notch. The musicality is amazing. Michael Stan is one of the best metal singers out there. Really, technically, there's nothing you can say bad about this album. It's just awesome. But it's just not something you're probably going to want to listen to all the time unless you're, a goth kid on South Park. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else I can say about it.
I have to say that, the very first few times I listened to it, I wasn't really that big a fan. I thought it was good, but not great. And the more you listen to it, the more you kind of come around on it. But I'm also a huge Michael Stan fan, so it could just be that, I'm just giving it more time and it's coming around for me. So it could very well be one of those. I still think it's a mood album. You have to be in the right headspace for it. But I'm coming around on it. I don't think it'll be something that I'll purchase on vinyl, but I could see myself coming back to it if I'm in that right kind of headspace.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worthy of being an honorable mention. And there are people out there that are going to absolutely love it. And it could even be some people's like album of the year are very high up on their list. So I won't be surprised to see it there because technically the music is amazing. It's not something I want to listen to all the time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that does it for honorable mentions. Let's go ahead and move into our topic. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we are doing influential albums up until the year 1995. And Christian chose this topic, so why don't I let him talk about why he picked this and where we're going to start.
I think the impetus for this whole thing is like when you see the advancements in how metal has progressed from where it started to where it is right now. And, with 2024 being such a strong fucking year for metal, and not just metal in general, but how far metal has come. Like, with Wayfarer, a black metal band mixing Western themes and damn near country music. If you were listening to metal in the 70s and 80s, you would have never thought it would go here.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. And part of that is, influence from other bands that have come out, and that's how we are where we are. And I was just starting to think about it, like, what are the most influential albums? Plus, this would be a great topic for, other people to chime in on. What do you consider are some of the best and most influential albums to come out through the years? And I figured we'd start, technically speaking, a band called Blue Cheer were one of the originators back in the 60s with, the heavy riffs and, driving kind of music. They were one of the very first to do that. But I would say that the originators for metal as we really know it, I would say is Black Sabbath. And so I would start there with, self-titled Black Sabbath album, 1970. This is where everything has come from that point. Just the way, the down tune, the evil sound, people were constantly saying that Black Sabbath live shows were gonna, the devil's
open
gonna
a portal
show up.
to hell.
And yeah, it's so crazy. And when you see where metal is today versus, metal from then, you're just like, yeah, no, not even remotely true.
Yeah, they were crawling back then. Now we're running at full speed.
Yeah. And we're inviting Lucifer, come on over. It's not even a bad thing anymore. Like, just hang out. Like, so
if a pit to hell opened, half the people in the audience would be like, "Oh, fuck, this is awesome."
Yeah. Oh, fuck, this band must really be good. So I honestly don't think people would be scared of it. But people were in the 70s,
mm-hmm.
And so when you're talking about influential albums, I think that's where you have to start is Black Sabbath, self-titled. 1970, and it just went on from there. And you know what's crazy is when you see how long it takes for albums to come out nowadays, and you see that Black Sabbath kicked out like 5 albums in 3 years. You're just like, what the fuck? But that was a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
You would kick out an album, you'd go on tour for a year, you'd kick out an album, go on tour for a year, and that was the cycle forever and a fucking day. And now it's, well, people aren't doing this for a living, or they can't do it as a living. So, you have much more space in between albums now. But I would definitely say we start with Black Sabbath, self-titled.
I agree with you. I mean, it is widely considered to be the initiation of metal as we know it today. The first album that really could be coined as a metal album. If you compare it to today's multitude of genres and subgenres, you would kind of classify it as like doom metal, more so than anything else. But so much blues inspiration in that album that really led into the drop tones and the stuff that we know in metal today. It's impossible to talk about influential albums without talking about Black Sabbath. And I think you're right. I mean, I think that they did grow up in the era of the rock star being a potential lifestyle for them. So they had to live in that cycle of tour and put out an album every year. And, as you move on in this list, you're going to see less and less of that because that era ended sometime in the 80s. So when we get to the 90s, and even when we get to part 2 of this, there have been some amazing influential albums, especially in the latter half, which we'll talk about in part 2, that, they were made by bands that were taking years to write their music, that, they knew they would probably never be financially independent based solely on their, music performance. So it's unfortunate that that's the way the world's gone, but, it's a big part of it too.
And I kind of wonder, in this modern era too, if that's what's driving how good these records are, because they're not just kicking out an album, writing an album in 3 months. They're writing an album 3 years. So you got plenty of time to work on it.
Yeah. All right.
But when you consider some of what came out back in the day, like album number 2, Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, which I consider really, really, really close to kind of the birth of the new wave of British heavy metal.
I mean,
Judas Priest and Motorhead and all that.
It may not have been the first one to spawn that, but it was definitely the most recognizable and probably the most influential overall, because it inspired so many other bands to form and start producing music.
Yeah. And that album has my favorite song of all time on it, Hallowed Be Thy Name. I've easily listened to that song, 25,000 times in my entire life. I told Justin earlier this week that I actually made it a goal there for a while that I would listen to that song every single day because it just made me happy. And I think I made it like 11 years before I missed a day.
That's crazy. If only you had Spotify to track your stats back then.
Maybe, yeah. But they're definitely second on that list at 1982. And when you consider the amount of bands that Iron Maiden has probably influenced is just staggering.
It's almost every metal band. It has to be. There's not a single person who didn't hear Iron Maiden. I don't think there's a metalhead alive that has never heard an Iron Maiden song, right?
Yeah.
There can't be.
You can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you can't like heavy metal and not have heard Iron Maiden.
Right. You don't have to like them, but you've definitely heard them.
You've heard it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think Number of the Beast was, of all of the albums on our list, I think that's probably the most influential album, period, in the history of metal. It created so many new bands. It was the tentpole album of the new wave of British heavy metal. It's still played today. It's still such an inspiration for bands that are coming around even in the modern era. And can you believe Iron Maiden's still touring and still making music this year? Like, that's fucking crazy. These guys have been around forever.
What's even crazier about that album is not only did it influence a shit ton of other bands that came after, but it also influenced the backlash that metal would see from the mainstream, because all of a sudden you had Devils on and they're singing, Number of the Beast, 666, and scaring the shit out of people. And that alone,
But
they probably spawned a whole cottage industry on the side just for that.
I'm sure, well, it made Tipper Gore's career, right?
There you
go. But you look back at that stuff by today's standards and the lyrical content is rather tame. Huh. It's just,
I thought it was tame back then.
Yeah.
And so it's just, people getting on it and not knowing anything about it. And, I watched the PMRC hearings live when I was a kid. I was 14 probably. And I remember watching that and just like, these people have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. Even I knew that. And I will freely admit the PMRC did more for pushing metal to a young metalhead like me than anybody else. Cause, I'd never heard of Wasp before, but I saw how upset the PMRC was about Wasp. And I was like, holy crap, I need to find some records from Wasp. And that was actually my introduction to Wasp was the PMRC. It's like, thanks, Tipper. There you go.
All right. Okay, well then moving on to the number 3 most influential album, Venom's black metal. Obviously, it spawned an entire subgenre of metal and easily my favorite subgenre of metal, although it took a long time to get there. If you listen to Venom's album, it's also more of a doomy kind of thrashy sound rather than what we know black metal as today. Really doesn't sound anything like what they did. They just coined the term, and even that act was incredibly influential because it led to other bands such as Mayhem, which we'll talk about in a minute, creating this subgenre that is so important today in the community. It's arguably the second biggest favored subgenre in metal. So, Venom's influence is undeniable. They inspired a lot of bands to incorporate satanic imagery into their music. They inspired a whole lot of bands to talk about rebelling against God and that stuff. There's so many bands out there that's all they sing about. That's all they talk about. It's all just remnants of what Venom and Merciful Fate and those kind of bands did back then. Black metal's evolved way beyond that at this point, but in its origins, that was such a critical part of the creation process for them, was making sure that people knew that was what their music was about. That was a statement they were making. And, you can't deny Venom was the most important factor in that.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with that. I will freely admit, never been a Venom fan, never really cared for him, but would black metal be called black metal without Venom though? And that's where you kind of, where I think their biggest influence lies is along with the satanic imagery, but they named the genre.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they should definitely get credit for that. And of course the imagery and stuff. There were other bands that kind of did the satanic thing here or there, but nowhere near their level.
Not as overtly
nowhere near
as they did.
Yeah.
They made it clear that that's what they were about. You might have a song here or there that was Number of the Beast or, something like that on an album, but nobody was like writing lyrics that were exclusively anti-religion like Venom did.
Yeah, and they did use a little bit of face paint, around the eyes and stuff, and they did, imagery on stage, and they did do a lot of that. So, they probably have a much larger impact than I'm probably giving them credit for just naming black metal.
And we're not really talking about Kiss, but Kiss's impact, kind of aligns with that because the face paint, as different as the sounds are, and as different as like the aesthetics will be and things like that between Kiss and any black metal band, obviously that inspiration came from them. And I know there were some other bands even before then that used like clown face paint that eventually would inspire, Dead and whoever else to do the corpse paint that led to black metal's imagery that we have today. So, you can do your own research on the history of corpse paint. It's pretty fascinating. I don't consider myself an expert, so I can't really talk about it step by step, but I know for a fact that these bands were super influential in what we see as an aesthetic in black metal today.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
I think from there we go with Metallica, Master of Puppets from 1986.
Arguably the best thrash metal album ever written.
Yeah. Yeah. And my God, what I wouldn't give to get another Master of Puppets album from Metallica at this point. I'm not a Metallica hater. I'm not super happy with their output over the last 20 years or whatever, but I still like it. I think they suffer from what a lot of modern legacy bands suffer from, that they put too much shit on their album. It's bloated. It's just too much. But my God, 1986, when this album came out, I went to the record store the day it was released and bought it, and it probably changed my life at that moment. This album was the one that I will point to that, made me a lifelong thrash metal fan. And like, oh my God, the amount of times I've listened to that album, and no weak songs, no bloat, no, oh my God. Just even thinking about that album is giving me goosebumps,
And
just because of
the songs are so
how good that record is.
The songs are so diverse. I mean, even the fact that there's an instrumental on the album, we were just bashing instrumentals a few minutes ago, but Orion is like a masterpiece. Like, it's just beautifully written and composed. I mean, it's, you think about it and you can compare it to Bach or Beethoven or one of those classic music composers. Yeah. It's that level of quality. I mean, if the intro tracks for these albums were that level of quality, maybe I wouldn't be saying anything, but they're not, And you're right. I'm not really a Metallica hater myself either. I don't listen to them as much nowadays as I did, in my teens and 20s. But their new albums are not as good as their old albums, and I think most Metallica fans feel that way. There are still good songs. There was a lot of stuff on Death Magnetic that I liked. There was a lot of stuff on the latest one that I liked, but there's also a lot of like complacency that's very apparent, where they're just kind of rehashing ideas and not doing anything terribly interesting. I just think they don't pay attention to what other bands are doing. They just kind of do their own thing, and it doesn't allow them to evolve their sound a whole lot.
And I mean, I'll go so far as to say, like Death Magnetic and 72 Seasons, you cut 3 or 4 songs off of each one of those albums, and you have a fantastic fucking album. Mm-hmm. And it's just that little bit of bloat. And I completely understand that there's probably fans out there that, those 4 songs that I would want to cut, those are their 4 favorites.
Yeah.
So, maybe they've just passed me by, or, I found other stuff
I think that
takes its place, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I think our ears have just evolved to the point where, like, more of the same is just not doing anything for us, especially when there's so much quality that's different and evolving is coming out. But it's absolutely undeniable that Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, that era of Metallica, inspired hundreds and thousands of bands. Those were just some of the best thrash albums that have ever been created. Yeah. And without Metallica, I don't think that we would have the same metal that we have today, for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So moving on, another album from 1986, Slayer's Rain in Blood, another one that is undeniable in its influence. This album was so powerful that it had an army of teenage kids carving Slayer into their arms with razor blades in the middle of class. See, you can't really argue that Slayer didn't have a big impact. I mean, they're also suffering from that same legacy band complex that Christian was just talking about, where a lot of their stuff is just rehashed or samey or whatever. And, they may not even be a band anymore after all the Kerry King drama and everything of this year. I don't really know where that's going to land, but the Slayer of old, undeniably influential for so many bands. They incorporated that evil imagery while still somehow being Catholics. I don't get that, but they made that work somehow. Yeah. And then, of course, like, the music just kicked ass on those albums. It was a lot of fun on the early ones. Not so much nowadays, but their old stuff, I love it.
Oh, I absolutely adore Rain and Blood, Seasons in the Abyss. Oh my God. They just had banger after banger after banger, and then it just kind of petered out, mid 90s. Mm-hmm. But, it doesn't diminish what they did create. And it is some of the best metal on the planet ever. So gotta give them props for that.
Definitely.
From there, I guess we will go with Death, Scream Bloody Gore. And here we have what I consider the birth of death metal. Death was doing something that nobody else was doing. And that's why it was actually called death metal, because nobody else did what death was doing. And so they had no way of categorizing it. So they just called it, well, that's that heavy metal that band Death play. And then they just started calling it death metal. So that's where we are now. And Chuck Schuldiner, just an amazing, amazing guitar player. Just his writing going forward from here. I mean, this album, Scream Bloody Gore, was very, very aggressive, and he definitely moved further and further away from that as he moved on, moving into more progressive things to do with his guitar playing and stuff, and and stuff like Symbolic as you moved forward.
He was a virtuoso. There's no denying that. Like he was one of the most revered guitar players in all of metal's history.
And what a shitty way to go. Dying of cancer, I don't wish that on my worst enemy. And I can only imagine what he would have created if he would have been, around just a little bit longer.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if he heard some of the music today and he was influenced by what his contemporaries were doing. Like, he could have come up with,
oh my God,
some just insane stuff. I mean, the guy was super duper talented. One of the absolute best, a legend that, in the field. Yeah. And, it's a shame that there's only a few death albums out there for us to listen to.
And I own every single one on vinyl. So I absolutely adore that band. One of the best death metal bands ever. Just no doubt.
All right. Well, moving on. Next, we have Bathory, At the Sign of the Black Mark from 1987. Bathory was also highly influential in the development of black metal and what it became today. Their sound is also somewhat doomy in places, and there's a lot more clean singing than what black metal eventually evolved into. But the sound and the tones and, the lyrical content and all that kind of stuff fit, perfectly into what black metal was going to evolve into. And if you ask pretty much any of the second wave black metal bands, if you're actually considering the second wave a real thing, they will all say that Bathory and Venom were the two bands that came before them, the predecessors to what eventually became black metal as we know it. So their importance can't be denied. And if you never heard Bathory, their stuff's pretty cool. I'd say check it out.
Yeah. Not one of my favorites, but I definitely cannot argue their importance. I think after that we have Entombed, Left Hand Path. I think they took death metal just a little further and added a little bit more groove into it. And Jesus Christ, the amount of people that I've heard talk about, musicians talk about how important that album was to them.
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, of course, everybody says that, but just as many talk about Left Hand Path.
Yeah, they're
the same way.
They're widely considered like the first death and roll band where they did like rock and roll style music with a death metal overlay, and nobody had really done that before. And, they kind of showed that the genre could be malleable and you could experiment with it and do things that, weren't kind of standardized by that point. So their influence was definitely massive, especially like you're saying, for so many musicians. I think it inspired a lot of guitarists to play with their sound and figure out that they could experiment and create things that hadn't been done before.
Yeah. And that's the hallmark of how this stuff evolves. It's just one person doing something just a little bit different, and then somebody else taking that idea and expanding on it a little bit. And, that's definitely where we are today.
Mm-hmm. And the next band or combination of bands are bands that essentially did that. We're going to kind of lump some together here because it's hard to pinpoint exactly who is responsible for the creation of melodic death metal, but that Gothenburg melodeath sound can easily be attributed to one of three bands, and it's going to be In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, or At the Gates. All of them were operating around the same time, writing their first album sometime between 1994 and 1995. And their influence is undeniable. I mean, metalcore would not exist today without In Flames existing. Dark Tranquillity is one of the best bands that's ever existed. And then At the Gates, they've inspired a whole generation of new melodeath bands that have kind of aped their sound or evolved their sound. All three greatly influential in slightly different ways, but all of them were at the heart of that movement that added melody to death metal growls and created that whole new sound that was so influential and so important for how metal evolved to what it is today.
That was my way back from, like in the late 80s, early 90s, metal was having a hard time. Grunge was coming out and it kind of pushed metal out right around 91, 92. A lot of the metal bands were lightening up their sound. That's when the Metallica Black album came out, which I wasn't a fan of, but I tried to like it, and I just
there's some good songs on there, but
there's some good
it's
songs,
not like what they did before.
Yeah. And, a lot of other bands were having that same issue. And then I was at a local mall, and a guy that I was actually going in, and I was looking for metal because I was tired of listening to the same old shit. And
yeah, I think
y'all need to bear in mind,
you talked about this on the Gateways episode.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
no, I mean, it's fair to talk about it again, because honestly, like, as much as we're talking about their influence musically, their influence as gateway bands can't be denied either, because, like, for a lot of people, In Flames or Soilwork or Dark Tranquillity or somebody in the melodic death metal realm was what pulled them into the side of metal where they wanted more extreme stuff. Yep. And I mean, for me, it was In Flames was highly important to me in my musical journey, and Dimmu Borgir, which we'll talk about in the second part of this. But like, bands like that didn't really exist. I mean, a lot of death metal, quote unquote, was pretty uninclusive. Like the average person couldn't just pick it up and enjoy it. Black metal at this time, same thing. Like, it's not something that people were easily able to appreciate. Like, nobody discovers and likes extreme music immediately. Like, you have to train your ear, and melodic death metal is one of the easiest ways to do that. So, I mean, that's another way where all of these bands were super influential. Not to cut you off, but I mean, I know you were talking about how you discovered In Flames in the mall. That's how it was for a lot of people back then.
Yep. And, that was a complete revelation for me, that In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, the first time I heard At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul. Yeah. You're just like, oh shit, and like my fandom is not dying out, it's like, it's actually progressing further. And since that time, I've just inundated myself with music, and that's when I started listening to, as much stuff as I could get my hands on. The advent of the internet certainly helped there. And yes, I was one of the people doing the LimeWire, and I did all that too, because I wanted to hear everything, and so I did that, and I make up for it now with the insane amount of money I spend on vinyl.
Yeah.
It was just so eye-opening, and I just couldn't get enough. And it hasn't subsided since that very moment. So 1994 probably is a solid 30 years now where I've just listened to tons of music, and I will firmly point to In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, At the Gates. They're the ones that started me on that journey.
Yeah. I give a lot of credit to them too, as well as Soilwork and Dimmu Borgir for pushing me into the extreme metal side of things and learning to love that kind of music, because before then I was listening to industrial metal, and like, I had listened to some thrash. I loved Metallica, obviously, but I was listening to, more basic type stuff and not really the extreme stuff. Mm-hmm. And the importance of gateway bands can't be denied. So huge fan of all those bands. Glad they're all still around. Glad they're touring. Like, it's great.
From there, I think we go with Emperor, In the Nightside Eclipse. This is arguably one of the best black metal albums of all time to this day. My God, that album is so fucking good. And just another album that was a complete revelation. Like, that was my first real foray into liking black metal, before because Mayhem and Dark Throne and them they were kicking out albums, but they always had that same problem with, which was a problem for me, was the production.
Yeah.
And I didn't like it. It just sounded like something recorded on a boombox in your mom's basement, and I just could not get around that. And then I heard In the Night Side Eclipse, and good production, and listening to what they were doing, and those progressive elements mixed into it, and yeah, I was like, son of a bitch, this is what black metal can be. And that's where I started my journey with black metal.
Yeah, I was only 12 years old in 1994, so I wasn't I wasn't as capable of getting my hands on that. I didn't really develop my love for black metal until I was in my 20s, and Dimmu was actually my gateway band for that. And then I discovered Immortal, and then Emperor. But those were the three bands that were most important to me. So I kind of bypassed the raw black metal era. Not to say I don't love raw black metal. I have a much better appreciation for it, and I can enjoy it more than Christian can, because the production doesn't bother me as much. But hand in hand with Emperors in the Nightside Eclipse, Mayhem's De Mysterious Dom Satanis came out the same year. It's kind of an interesting part of history. Just all these black metal bands that were in the same area at the same time, that were all sort of linked to Mayhem, and building their sound, and they were like friendly competition with each other. I mean, nobody knows the whole story because nobody was really there, but we've got a bunch of books about it. We've got a bunch of movies and interviews from all the people that were there. But my internal idea of what that era was like is that all these bands just hung out together all the time, and then they would perform, and it's like a lot of them were raw black metal bands, but then you had like Emperor perform and they incorporated all that symphonic and melodic stuff. I mean, you got to wonder what the Mayhem guys were thinking when they heard that. You got to wonder, like, the guys who originated the more raw sound, like even Dark Throne, if they're sitting there and they see Emperor get up and play, or Immortal get up and play, I mean, are they going, wow, this shit sucks because there's melody in it? Or are they going, holy crap, you elevated this to a level so far beyond what we've done? I would have loved to have
Or are they looking at him and yelling out, poser?
Yeah, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall to see, the internal thoughts of all these bands in that time period, because it's just so fascinating to me. And I kind of feel the same way about, I always talk about AOP Records, but really like the origin of post-black metal, because it all sort of happened in Austria and Germany. We'll talk about more about this in part 2, but there was a collective that created all these bands that are now like the kings of post-black metal. And it's kind of the same thing here. There was a collective of all these guys who were developing the black metal sound, and some of them just did it way better. Mayhem's importance cannot be understated, because without them, none of these other guys would have even tried to make this sound. Mayhem were the ones that discovered that tone, and Dead created that style of singing, and they incorporated the corpse paint. I mean, none of it was truly original, but putting it all together was something that hadn't been done before. And without Mayhem, we wouldn't have any of these other bands. And without Emperor, we wouldn't have the better sounding black metal bands that we have today. I mean, Isan's inspired so many people. It's ridiculous.
And I mean, when you consider all this music, the mellow death, black metal, and, the cleaner black metal, and all of this coming from Sweden, Norway, Finland, just in that, just that area. That's such a small area. And, even within those countries, it was a small area. It was mainly in the major cities. And just to think the incredible, and all roughly around the same time, it's just staggering when you think like, man, wish I would have lived in Gothenburg at the time or something,
Yeah. I mean, just, they had to be sharing ideas. They had to be motivating each other to get better. They had to be inspiring each other to write better songs, and then I'm sure they were filling in for each other when people got sick and stuff like that. These bands had to be friends in the beginning. And I think it would just have been amazing to be a part of any of these movements that evolved into what it is at the beginning, just to see what happened. But
yeah.
So moving to the other side of the world, also in 1994. While we have this amazing movement of black metal and melodic death metal going on in Europe and the Norwegian countries, in America, Korn created their first album, their self-titled album, and created the nu metal movement. You know, whether you like it or not, nu metal was a massive part of metal's history. It still is. I mean, a lot of the bands that were created then are still touring today, have huge fan bases. I mean, Korn and Slipknot and all those bands, their impact is undeniable. And a lot of those bands are gateway bands. I mean, I won't lie, I listened to Issues a lot when I was younger. I've listened to the first couple Slipknot albums a lot when I was younger. I was kind of like just looking for what I was going to like before I discovered harder, more extreme metal. And I think that those are gateway bands for a lot of, you know, younger kids too. I mean, without nu metal and without In Flames, we wouldn't have metalcore like we do today. Those both kind of evolved from that nu metal and the melodeath sound merging. And Korn, I mean, they did a lot of innovative stuff. They did stuff that had never been incorporated in metal before. They didn't sound like anything anybody had ever heard before, with those tribal chants and grunts and the weird, like, funky bass lines mixed in with the metal, and you know,
and heavy bass.
Yeah,
like rap style bass.
Yeah, they definitely did their own thing, and it worked, and it inspired a whole legion of nu metal bands. So, you know, whether you like that kind of music or not, you know, its importance is undeniable. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, I mean, back in that day when I'll admit I listened to Korn. Out of all the nu metal bands, Korn, I actually kind of liked Korn, at least for the first couple of albums. You know, I don't remember what album Freak on a Leash is on, but I really dug that song. I don't know what it was about it, but just that bass line that's in it is just so well done.
It was a great music video too. And back then, music videos were still a thing, so you would see it on TV all the time.
Oh, when music television used to play music?
Yeah.
No way. Fucking stupid. Call it something else at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, nu metal wasn't really my thing, you know, as it went forward. Like I never really dug Limp Bizkit or any of that stuff, but I definitely saw its appeal. I could see why people liked it, and people really liked it. If, you know, the Woodstock 99 is any indication, where Limp Bizkit damn near burned down the place.
I mean, even this year when they reformed and went on tour, I mean, there's photos of like
huge,
massive crowds to see Limp Bizkit. I mean, they're just as big as they ever were. And Slipknot's always been big. Yeah. You know, Korn has always been big. You know, there's other ones that are less good or less popular that, you know, like I loved Static X back in the day, and they would be classified as nu metal. I love Fear Factory. Fear Factory would fall into that realm. Those were both bands that were gateways for me as well. Like Fear Factory's arguably one of the heavier of all of the nu metal bands. They were a big part of why I liked heavier music and why I was open to discovering melodic death metal.
And for me, I think it's like, here's where our age difference really shows up, and that's why I didn't get into nu metal, because I grew up on Metallica and Megadeth and Slayer and, you know, this kind of stuff. So when it moved to, you know, Korn and Limp Bizkit, I was like, what the fuck is this shit? You know, it's like, I just want a good Metallica album. And then, you know, Metallica came out with Load and Reload, and I was like, shit, I still want a good Metallica album.
It's a cyclical thing too, because like the bands that are popular, you know, Falling in Reverse and Slaughter to Prevail, and those, like, I have no interest in listening to those. Like I've heard a couple songs, and I'm just like, this is not for me. And I'm sure you felt the same way when you heard, you know, Slipknot and Korn. Like it's, you know, some of it might sound cool because I mean, it does have a base of being metal, but it's not the type of metal that I'm drawn to at this point in my life. And I've already developed my ear, and that's not going to be part of my development. So it doesn't appeal to me. But for kids, you know, that are growing up and that's what they're exposed to, I think it's still super important, because that leads them to seek out better stuff.
Yeah. Kids and young adults, and, you know, like Motionless in White, and, you know, it seems like all these bands have 3 words in their name. I wonder, it definitely feels like a thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, I'm not going to hate on it. It's not for me, but I can see the appeal of it. I get it. I get why somebody would like it. It just doesn't do anything for me. So is what it is. Nobody is always going to like all the same things. And that's what's great about heavy metal in general. So, yeah. And, here's where the engagement comes in. Tell us something that we missed. What's something that you listened to that, had a huge impact on you? Maybe it didn't impact the metal scene in general, but what's the album that really impacted you? What turned you on to be like, what, metal is my thing?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from anybody who listens to the show.
Yeah.
Drop us a line. Tell us, if you have ideas for the show, you'd want to hear us talk about something, or a theme you'd like us to use, or even a band that you would like to hear us play.
Definitely join our Discord.
Yeah, join our Discord as well. The link gets posted regularly on Twitter and Instagram, so feel free to join up. There's a lot of great people in there to talk to. And, obviously we have our extreme submissions segment that we've been doing for the last few episodes, where bands are sending us their material. And so far, everything we've gotten has been great. So we're always choosing a track to play at the end. We're actually going to do that again this episode. But before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about our pickups.
All righty. Most of my pickups are pretty generic here because I picked up a lot of merch from shows. I was able to pick up a couple of Gatecreeper albums, Frozen Soul album, and I even picked up 2 Worm vinyl albums. Not my thing at all, that doomy black metal kind of stuff. But
it's like psychedelic too. I think the doom and black works super well, but it's the psychedelic elements that, like, when you listen to it on Spotify or something, it just doesn't work all the time for me. Like, the black metal parts are excellent, but it kind of feels like blood incantation. There's like parts that are kind of slow and meandering that don't do anything for me. And then you get the aggressive black metal. It's like, oh shit, this is great. But seeing them live, holy shit. Like, you were raving about it. I saw the same concert like a week after you did. They put on a hell of a show. It's funny because he does all the standard, black metal theatric type stuff. He brings out a sword. He brings out a skull that he's talking to. He's got a big candelabra that he lights on fire and is like waving around while he sings. He drinks blood from a chalice. It's very entertaining. And the songs they played on tour were more of the faster paced, aggressive songs, I guess, which, seeing them live was incredible. They were so good, but I still don't have the draw to listen to their albums as much because I agree with you. Like, that psychedelic, slow, doomy stuff doesn't always work for me, but the good stuff is good.
Well, I've listened to the albums a couple of times since I've bought them. It does translate better on vinyl than it does digital, but it's still not my preferred thing.
Actually,
it's definitely, I have to be in the mood for it.
Yeah. So they performed in Houston. And if you don't know the tour, it was Gatecreeper, Frozen Soul, and Worm. 2 of those bands are death metal bands. The other one is Worm, which is obviously a doom/black metal band. Not exactly the same sort of crowd that the bands would draw. So when Worm performed in Houston, some douchebag in the front of the crowd threw a beer at him and was like, "You fucking suck," or "Your music's terrible," or something like that. I couldn't hear what he said, but he screamed something at him. So before Frozen Soul went on, Chad comes out on stage. If you don't know Chad, he's like 6'7", 400 pounds. He's the lead singer of the band. And he's like, "These are my fucking family. If I figure out who the fuck did that, I will come down there and fuck you up." And like, there's not a bigger man than that guy in the room. And so, the people in the front were like, "Whoa." And I'm in the back and I'm just laughing. I thought it was hilarious, but Frozen Soul performed. They were fucking amazing live. Like, I've always enjoyed their albums, but I had no idea how good they were live. And for being such a large person, he moves around that stage like a snake. Like, he never bumps into anybody or stumbles over anything. And he's so full of energy. And like, I was in awe because like, I'm a large man myself. And it's like, I couldn't do that shit. It's amazing that he can.
I'm nowhere near his size and I can't do that shit.
I was super impressed with Frozen Soul. They put on an outstanding show. And then Gatecreeper was a lot of fun, as they always are. I actually saw that Dark Superstition got nominated for a Grammy for the best metal album.
Really?
So I fucking hope they win because, I'm sure their competition is going to be Jethro Tull and some shit. So hopefully, hopefully a real metal band wins that.
Yeah. Oh, I still remember that day. What? Jethro Tull?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, but the other things that I've picked up, I picked up some merch at the Bewitcher show. You saw that
I
same
did.
show.
Saw part of it. I
And
couldn't see the whole thing. If you want to read about
oh, yeah.
the fog incident, feel free to check out my review of that show on harshvocals.com.
Apparently they figured out what the issue was with the fog machine because it didn't go crazy during that one. So, I mean, I was mainly there to see Bewitcher, and yeah, they crushed like usual. They're just an amazing band live.
Yeah, they really are.
They're so tight and so right on top of shit. Tons of energy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you get a chance, definitely go see that show.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, on my side, Indie Merch Store released a whole bunch of Halloween themed t-shirts for a bunch of different bands. Some of the designs are better than others, obviously, but this is a new thing they've been doing. Like I saw they did the same thing for Star Wars back on Star Wars Day. They did it for Halloween as well. I ended up buying a couple of the shirts that I thought were really cool. One of them is Rivers of Nile. It's a combination of like Rivers of Nile, Where Owls Know My Name, and Twin Peaks. So it has like the red and black stripe pattern with the owl on the front. And on the back, it says, "Where owls are not what they seem." Very Twin Peaks and Rivers merged. Yep. I thought it was a cool shirt. And then I also picked up the Inferi shirt, which is the alien queen that they previewed like a few months ago. So I liked both of those. I picked those up. I also picked up a Frozen Soul shirt at the show we were just talking about and a Gate Creeper patch for my jacket. You're wearing your Bewitcher shirt now, yeah. I picked up Alcest's Kodama vinyl. That's my favorite Alcest album, and I didn't have it on vinyl, but when Amazon did their Prime Day sale last week, somehow they had it, and it was only $14, so I snatched it up.
Oh, nice.
So I was very happy about that. And then I picked up a couple of new vinyls from this week's releases. The new Feral album, which is coming out, is one of the best death metal albums I've heard this year. It's so much fun. And then I picked up the Immortal Bird album, which, spoiler alert, is going to be a pick next week.
Yeah, I already bought it too.
It's so good.
It's on the way.
It's a top 15 quality album
hopefully
for the year. I mean, it's just excellent. And then I also picked up an album from the band called Majesties that released last year. They're kind of like a muffled sort of melodeath, like kind of like old style In Flames. If you haven't heard that one, it's really, really good. I picked that up as well. Good stuff. And that's it for my picks. So let's go ahead and move into the extreme submissions. This time we're going to play a track from the band called Negative Bliss. The track that we're going to play is called The Lighthouse. They have an upcoming EP called Everything Hurts and I'm Dying, which is very relatable.
Oh my goodness, is it ever? Everything does hurt.
It's coming out November 1st this year. It's kind of a mixture of doom and death metal with a little bit of post and hardcore elements. Steve, who I'm a friend with on Twitter and in our Discord, he is the guitarist, the vocalist, and he does the synths for the album. The metal Twitter community is pretty tight knit. He actually like helps out a lot of other bands. I've honestly never met a more like positive hype man kind of person as Steve in my entire life. Like he is always promoting other people and, helping share stuff for people. And just, he's all about making everybody's lives better, which is funny because his bands are called Negative Bliss and Am I in Trouble? So he's done a couple of interviews. He actually did an interview with our friend Josh Runquist over on the Heavy Debriefings YouTube channel. If you want to go and check that out, where he talks more about the album. And I'm going to be reviewing the album for him and posting that up on Harsh Vocals pretty soon as well. I love this EP. It's excellent. All the songs are great. I think people are really going to dig it when it does come out. But I'm going to play The Lighthouse, which is the track that is currently available. So if you enjoy this, go and pre-save the album on Spotify or, give it a like or whatever, or just reach out to Steve directly and tell him how much you enjoy it. I'm sure he'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I listened to it quite a bit. And I only have that one song, but I listened to it about 4 or 5 times this afternoon. And I was, like earlier we were talking about, like bands make the Blood Incantation trying to mix, Pink Floyd in with their death metal. But this here, I hear some Pink Floyd in this. Mm-hmm. And to me, this works way better. Like the mixture of those two, like the intro section to this is very, very Pink Floyd to me.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Yeah, and it just leads directly into it, which is, if Blood Incantation would do that, Yeah, I would probably like it, but they don't. So I guess I'll just have to stick with Negative Bliss then.
Yeah, there you have it. Negative Bliss, way better than Blood Incantation. So
there you go. There you go. You heard it here first.
If you take anything away from this show, that should be it.
Yep. Yep. There you go.
All right, let's go ahead and play the track. Again, this is The Lighthouse off of the upcoming EP, Everything Hurts and I Am Dying, from the band Negative Bliss. Hope you guys have a great couple weeks, and we will see you soon.
See ya.
Her once young hands, her mind since gone to other lands. Her eyes just bear reflections of the sea. Behind those lifeless spokes of white, a vacancy as dark as night. The only gleam of light, a memory. Wait for me is all.